The dust from the funeral procession had barely settled when the first proposal came, and Amelia Everhart wanted nothing more than to throw her mourning veil in the man's face. She stood in the parlor of her small ranch house outside Fort Garland, Colorado, staring at Henry Morrison as he wrung his hat between his thick fingers, his eyes darting everywhere except to her face. It was 1876, and her husband Robert had been dead exactly 2 weeks. Mrs. Everhart, I know this might seem sudden, Henry stammered, but a woman in your position needs a man to run this place. I'd be willing to take on the burden of this ranch and, well, you and the boy. Amelia felt her spine stiffen. At 28 years old, she had spent the last 6 years working alongside Robert to build their cattle operation from nothing. Her hands were as calloused as any ranch hands, and her son Thomas was only 4 years old, too young to understand why his father would never come home from that trip to Denver, where a runaway wagon had ended his life. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Morrison, but I am quite capable of managing my own affairs, she said, her voice steady despite the anger building in her chest. Henry's face reddened. Now, Mrs. Everhart, be reasonable. A woman cannot run a cattle ranch alone. It is not proper, and it is certainly not possible. You need a husband. What I need, Amelia said, walking to the door and opening it, is for well-meaning men to stop telling me what I cannot do. Good day, Mr. Morrison. He left in a huff, but he was only the first. Over the next 3 months, 5 more men came calling, each with the same basic message wrapped in varying degrees of false sympathy. They spoke of helping her, of taking care of her, of relieving her of the burden of the ranch. Not one of them asked what she wanted. Not one of them seemed to see her as anything more than a problem to be solved, a piece of property that needed a new owner now that Robert was gone. Amelia refused them all. She threw herself into the work of the ranch with a fierce determination, rising before dawn to feed the chickens and check on the cattle, spending long days mending fences and managing the 2 ranch hands Robert had hired the year before. Pete and Charlie were good men, loyal and hardworking, but they were getting older, and the ranch needed more help if it was going to survive. The trouble was, Amelia was running out of money to pay anyone. Robert's death had come with unexpected expenses, and the cattle market was unpredictable that year. She needed to drive her herd to market in Pueblo, but that required more men than she currently had. Pete and Charlie could not do it alone, and she could not leave Thomas for the weeks such a journey would require. It was a warm evening in late August when everything changed. Amelia was in the barn, trying to repair a broken saddle by lamplight after putting Thomas to bed, when she heard the sound of a horse approaching. She reached for the rifle Robert had taught her to use, her heart pounding. Strangers after dark were rarely good news. Hello, the house. A man's voice called out. I am looking for work, and I saw your lamp burning. I mean no harm. Amelia stepped out of the barn, rifle in hand, but pointed at the ground. In the dim light from the barn and the rising moon, she could see a tall man on a rangy sorrel horse. He sat easy in the saddle, his hands visible and empty of weapons. We are not hiring, she called back. I heard in town that the Everhart Ranch might need hands for a cattle drive, the man said. He swung down from his horse with fluid grace, moving slowly and keeping his hands where she could see them. Name is Vincent Crawford. I have been working ranches from Texas to Montana for the past 10 years. I can ride, rope, and handle cattle as well as any man you will find. I said we are not hiring, Amelia repeated, but there was less conviction in her voice. She desperately needed help, and this man, this Vincent Crawford, did not sound like the others who had come calling. There was no presumption in his tone, no assumption that she would be grateful for his presence. "Mrs. Everhart," he said, and she was surprised he knew her name. "I will be plain with you. I need work, and from what I hear in town, you need workers. Pete mentioned at the general store that you are trying to figure out how to get your herd to market before winter. I am proposing a simple business arrangement." Amelia studied him more carefully. He was younger than she had first thought, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair that needed cutting and several days' worth of stubble on his jaw. His clothes were worn but clean, and his saddle, though old, was well maintained. Everything about him spoke of a man who took care of his equipment and himself. "Come into the light," she said, gesturing toward the barn. Vincent led his horse forward, and in the lamplight, Amelia could see his face more clearly. He had dark eyes that met hers directly, without the discomfort or condescension she had seen in so many men's gazes since Robert's death. There was a scar along his left cheekbone, and his hands were work-roughened and strong. "What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Crawford?" she asked. "I will work for you through the cattle drive to Pueblo and back. You pay me the standard rate for a top hand, nothing more. After the drive, if you want to keep me on through winter, we can discuss terms then. If not, I will move along, no hard feelings." It was a straightforward offer, the kind Robert would have made or accepted himself. Amelia felt something loosen in her chest, a tension she had been carrying since the funeral. "I cannot pay you until after we sell the cattle," she admitted. "Money is tight right now." "I figured as much," Vincent said. "I will work on credit until then. You seem like a woman who pays her debts." "I am," Amelia said firmly, "but I need more than just you. I need at least 2 more men for a drive that size. I know 2 men, good men, who are looking for work. Brothers, actually. They are camped outside town. I could bring them around tomorrow if you want to meet them." Amelia made a decision that she would later recognize as the first turning point in her new life. "Come back tomorrow at first light with your friends. I will talk to them then. There is a bunkhouse behind the main house where you and the others can stay if I hire you. It is not fancy, but it is clean and dry." "That is all a man can ask for," Vincent said. He tipped his hat to her. "Thank you for your time, Mrs. Everhart. I will see you in the morning." She watched him ride away into the darkness, then stood for a long moment in the barn doorway, wondering if she was making a mistake. But something about Vincent Crawford felt different. He had not looked at her with pity or avarice. He had looked at her like a rancher looking at another rancher, someone with a problem he might be able to help solve. That night, for the first time since Robert's death, Amelia slept soundly. True to his word, Vincent returned at dawn with 2 other men. The brothers he had mentioned were named Jack and Tom Wilson, both in their mid-20s, with the sun-weathered faces of men who spent their lives outdoors. They were polite and respectful, answering Amelia's questions about their experience with cattle and horses without any of the barely concealed amusement she had sometimes seen when men had to answer to a woman. Pete and Charlie vouched for Vincent, saying they had asked around about him the previous evening. He had a solid reputation as a hard worker and a fair man, never started trouble but could finish it if necessary. The Wilson brothers were less well known, but they came with references from a ranch near Colorado Springs. "The pay is $30 a month plus food and board," Amelia said. "I cannot pay you until after we sell the herd, but I will put it in writing if you want." "Your word is good enough," Vincent said, and the Wilson brothers nodded in agreement. "Then you are hired. We leave for Pueblo in 3 days. That gives us time to prepare the supplies and get the cattle ready to move. Can you start today?" "Yes, madam," all 3 men said in unison. Over the next 3 days, Amelia saw that she had made the right choice. Vincent Crawford was everything he had claimed to be and more. He worked from before sunrise to after sunset, his movements efficient and practiced. He was good with horses, better with cattle, and he had a way of organizing the work that made everything run more smoothly. The Wilson brothers followed his lead, and even Pete and Charlie seemed reinvigorated by the presence of competent help. But what struck Amelia most was the way Vincent spoke to her. He came to her with questions and suggestions, not orders or dismissive comments. When she made decisions about the ranch, he listened and implemented them without argument. When he disagreed with something, he stated his opinion respectfully and accepted her final word. On the evening before they were set to leave, Vincent found her checking supplies in the barn. Thomas was playing nearby with a wooden horse Robert had carved for him, making small galloping sounds. "That is a good boy you have there," Vincent said, watching Thomas with a slight smile. "He is my whole world now," Amelia said softly. "After Robert died, I thought about selling the ranch and moving back east to my sister's place, but this is Thomas's inheritance. His father built this from nothing, and I will not let it go without a fight." "Robert Everhart was lucky to have a partner like you," Vincent said. Amelia looked up at him sharply. "A partner? That is what Pete told me. He said you and your husband worked this place together, that you were not just his wife but his partner in building this ranch." Vincent met her eyes. "That is rare and valuable." Something in Amelia's chest tightened. In all the months since Robert's death, no one had acknowledged what she had been to him. Everyone saw her as a widow, a woman who needed taking care of, a problem to be solved. But Vincent saw what she had been and, more importantly, what she still was. "Thank you for saying that," she whispered. The cattle drive to Pueblo took 12 days. It was hard, dusty, exhausting work, and Amelia had arranged for Mrs. Chen, a widow from town who sometimes helped with washing and mending, to stay at the ranch and care for Thomas while she was gone. Leaving her son was the hardest thing she had ever done, but she knew she needed to be on this drive. She needed to see her cattle sold and get the money that would keep the ranch running. Vincent never questioned her presence on the drive. He treated her like any other member of the team, expecting her to pull her weight and trusting her to do so. When they encountered a small group of wild mustangs that spooked part of the herd, Amelia was the one who rode out and turned them back, and Vincent simply nodded his approval when she returned. Around the campfire at night, the men told stories and joked, and they included Amelia in their conversation naturally. The Wilson brothers talked about growing up on a small farm in Kansas, and Pete shared memories of his younger days as a cavalry scout. Charlie, usually quiet, surprised them all by revealing he had once been a stage actor in San Francisco before the drink had gotten the better of him, and he had come to Colorado to start over. Vincent shared less about his past, but Amelia learned that he had grown up in Missouri, that his parents had died when he was young, and that he had been working ranches since he was 15. He had never married, never stayed in one place long enough to put down roots. Why not? Amelia asked one evening when it was just the two of them on watch while the others slept. "Surely you have had opportunities." Vincent was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on the distant horizon where the last light of sunset was fading. "I never found anyone who wanted a partner," he said finally. "Most women I met wanted someone to take care of them, to make decisions for them, to treat them like delicate things that might break. I could never see myself in that kind of marriage." "What kind of marriage could you see yourself in?" Amelia asked, surprised by her own boldness. "The kind where two people work together toward something bigger than themselves, where they respect each other's strengths and help with each other's weaknesses, where they are a team." He looked at her then, and in the firelight his dark eyes were serious. The kind of marriage it sounds like you had. Amelia felt her breath catch. Yes, she said softly. That is exactly what Robert and I had. They sat in comfortable silence after that, listening to the night sounds of the prairie and the gentle lowing of the cattle. The sale in Pueblo went better than Amelia had dared hope. The cattle market was strong, and her herd was healthy and well fed. She walked away with enough money to pay the men, stock up on supplies for the winter, and have a cushion for emergencies. For the first time since Robert's death, she felt like she could breathe freely. That evening, before they started the journey back to Fort Garland, Amelia paid each of the men what she owed them. Vincent was the last to receive his wages. I want you to stay on through the winter, she said as she counted out his money. All of you, if you are willing. The ranch is finally starting to stabilize and I could use steady hands. I can pay you regular wages now. The Wilson brothers and Pete and Charlie all agreed immediately, but Vincent was quiet. Can I give you my answer when we get back? He asked. Amelia felt an unexpected pang of disappointment, but nodded. Of course. The journey back to Fort Garland was quicker without the cattle to manage. They made good time, and Amelia found herself looking forward to seeing Thomas again with an intensity that made her chest ache. But she also found herself watching Vincent, wondering what he was thinking, why he was hesitating about staying on at the ranch. On the last night before they reached home, Vincent asked if he could speak with her privately. They walked away from the camp, out to where they could see the stars spread across the sky in a glittering blanket. I need to be honest with you about something, Vincent said. When I first came to your ranch, I was just looking for work. But over these past weeks, working with you, watching how you run things, how you care for your people and your land, I have come to respect you more than any person I have ever known. Amelia's heart was beating faster, but she kept her voice steady. That respect is mutual, Mr. Crawford. Vincent, he said. Please call me Vincent. Vincent, she repeated softly. I will stay on at your ranch through the winter if you want me, he continued. But I need you to know that my feelings have become more than just those of an employee for an employer. If that makes you uncomfortable, I will move on. I would never want to put you in an awkward position or make you feel like I am taking advantage. Amelia stood very still, processing his words. Her first instinct was to protect herself, to push away any suggestion of romantic feelings. She had been so focused on proving she did not need a man to rescue her that she had not stopped to consider whether she might want one in her life for the right reasons. What exactly are you saying? She asked carefully. Vincent turned to face her fully. I am saying that I have feelings for you, Amelia. Real feelings. But I also know you have been fighting off men who wanted to own you, to control you, to turn you into some kind of servant. I am not one of those men. If there were ever to be something between us, I would want it to be a partnership. I would want you to keep being exactly who you are, strong, capable, independent. I do not need a servant or someone to take care of. I need a partner. The words hit Amelia like a physical force. I need a partner, not a servant. It was everything she had wanted to hear, everything those other men had failed to understand. Vincent was not offering to rescue her or take over her life. He was offering to share it, to build something together as equals. I am not ready for marriage, she said slowly. Robert has only been gone 6 months. It would not be proper, and honestly, my heart is not ready for that yet. I understand, Vincent said quickly. I am not asking you to marry me right now. I am just being honest about my feelings and my intentions. I will wait as long as you need. And if you decide you do not feel the same way, I will respect that too, though I hope we can still work together. Amelia looked up at the stars, thinking about Robert, about the life they had built together and the love they had shared. She knew he would want her to be happy, would want her to find someone who valued her the way he had. And she could not deny that Vincent Crawford had stirred something in her heart, something she had thought died with her husband. "I think I could have feelings for you too," she admitted. "But I need time. I need to be sure this is real and not just loneliness or gratitude for your help." "Take all the time you need," Vincent said. "I am a patient man." When they returned to the ranch the next day, Thomas ran out to meet them, and Amelia swept him up in her arms, covering his face with kisses. Mrs. Chen reported that everything had gone smoothly, and the house looked exactly as Amelia had left it. Over the next months, as autumn turned to winter and snow began to dust the peaks of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, Amelia and Vincent developed a rhythm. He worked the ranch alongside the other men, never presuming on the conversation they had had, never pushing for more than she was ready to give. But in the evenings, after Thomas was in bed, they often sat together in the parlor, talking about everything from ranch business to books to their dreams for the future. Amelia found herself looking forward to these conversations more than she wanted to admit. Vincent had a quick mind and a dry sense of humor that made her laugh. He had read widely despite his lack of formal education, borrowing books whenever he could and studying them by lamplight. They disagreed sometimes, but their arguments were stimulating rather than frustrating, two minds testing themselves against each other. The people of Fort Garland noticed, of course. In a small town, everything was noticed and discussed. Amelia heard the whispers, saw the meaningful looks. Mrs. Chen was the first to say something directly. "That Mr. Crawford is a good man," she said one day while helping Amelia with the washing. "Very different from those others who came calling." "He is a good worker," Amelia said neutrally. Mrs. Chen smiled knowingly. "He is also a good man who looks at you like you hang the moon, and you look at him the same way when you think no one is watching." Amelia felt her cheeks warm. "Is it that obvious?" "To those who know how to look, yes. But there is no shame in it, Mrs. Everhart. Your Robert would want you to be happy, and the year of mourning is almost over." It was true. Robert had been dead for nearly 10 months, and spring was approaching. The ranch had survived the winter better than Amelia had dared hope. The cattle were healthy, the finances were stable, and the men were all planning to stay on. Vincent had never again mentioned his feelings directly, but his actions spoke clearly. He was always there when she needed him, always supportive without being overbearing, always treating her as an equal partner in running the ranch. The turning point came in early March, when a late winter storm blew in suddenly and caught half the herd in the far pasture. Vincent and Jack Wilson rode out to bring them in, but when they had not returned by nightfall, Amelia began to worry. By midnight, with the storm worsening, she was frantic. "I am going out to look for them," she announced, already pulling on her heaviest coat. "You cannot go out in this," Pete protested. "The storm is too dangerous." "They are out in it right now, and I will not sit here doing nothing," Amelia shot back. She had her horse saddled and was preparing to leave when she heard the sound of riders approaching. Vincent and Jack appeared out of the swirling snow, both covered in ice, their horses stumbling with exhaustion. They had gotten the cattle to a sheltered valley, but Vincent's horse had stepped in a hole on the way back, throwing him. He had twisted his ankle badly and could barely walk. Amelia helped him into the house, her heart pounding with relief and residual fear. She sent Jack to the bunkhouse to warm up and told Pete to tend to the horses. Then she helped Vincent to a chair by the fire and knelt to examine his ankle. "It is not broken," she said after a careful examination. "But it is badly sprained. You need to stay off it for at least a week." "The ranch cannot spare me for a week," Vincent protested. "The ranch will manage," Amelia said firmly. "You are no good to anyone if you cannot walk. Mrs. Chen can help me with Thomas and the other men can handle the work." Over the next week, Vincent was a reluctant patient, but Amelia was a firm nurse. She brought him meals, changed the bandages on his ankle, and sat with him in the evenings. Thomas, who had grown fond of Vincent over the months, brought him his toys and entertained him with elaborate stories. One evening, watching Vincent laugh at one of Thomas's wild tales about a heroic cowboy and his magical horse, Amelia realized something. She had fallen in love with this man. Somewhere between that first night when he had ridden up to her barn and this moment, watching him be gentle and patient with her son, her feelings had deepened from respect and friendship into something much more profound. The realization should have frightened her, but instead she felt a sense of peace. This was different from her love for Robert, but it was no less real. Robert had been her first love, the father of her child, her partner in building a dream. Vincent was something else, a second chance, a future she had not expected to have. When Thomas finally went to bed, Amelia sat down across from Vincent in the parlor. "There is something I need to tell you," she said. Vincent set down the book he had been reading. "I am listening. You said once that you had feelings for me, that you wanted a partnership, not someone to take care of." Amelia took a deep breath. "I have spent the last months trying to figure out if what I felt for you was real or just gratitude or loneliness. And this week, watching you with Thomas, seeing your patience and kindness, I realized something." "What did you realize?" Vincent asked softly. "That I have fallen in love with you," Amelia said. "Real, true love. Not because I need you to run my ranch or take care of me, but because you are a good man who treats me as an equal. Because you make me laugh and challenge my thinking and care about the things I care about. Because when you were out in that storm, I was terrified of losing you, and that is when I knew." Vincent stood up, wincing as he put weight on his injured ankle and crossed to where she sat. He knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. "Amelia Everhart, I have been in love with you since about the second week of the cattle drive, when you rode out into that dust storm to turn back those spooked cattle without a moment's hesitation. I love your strength and your courage and your fierce devotion to your son and this ranch. I love that you never gave up, even when everyone told you that you could not do this alone." "I do not want to do it alone anymore," Amelia whispered, "but I also do not want to give up who I am." "I would never ask you to," Vincent said. "When I said I needed a partner, I meant it. I want to build a life with you, Amelia, but this ranch is yours. It will always be yours, the legacy you and Robert built for Thomas. I will work it with you as a partner, not as someone taking over. And if you want to keep your own name, if you want to maintain legal ownership, if you want any kind of arrangement that makes you feel secure and independent, I will agree to it." Amelia felt tears running down her cheeks. "I want to marry you, Vincent. I want to be your wife and have you as my husband, but I also want to still be me." "You will always be you," Vincent promised. "That is who I fell in love with." They married in May when the wildflowers were blooming across the Colorado prairie and the snow had finally melted from the high peaks. It was a small ceremony in the church in Fort Garland, with Thomas standing between them as they said their vows. Mrs. Chen cried happy tears, and Pete and Charlie and the Wilson brothers stood as witnesses. Even some of the townspeople who had been skeptical about Amelia running her ranch alone came to offer their congratulations. Amelia chose to keep Everhart as her legal surname, adding Crawford as a middle name. Vincent supported this decision completely. They worked out a legal arrangement where the ranch remained in Amelia's name, with provisions for Thomas to inherit it when he came of age. Vincent would be her partner in running it, but the ownership would stay with the Everhart family. Their wedding night was tender and passionate, both of them nervous and eager in equal measure. Amelia had worried that being with someone other than Robert would feel like a betrayal, but instead, it felt like a new beginning. Vincent was patient and gentle, and when they came together, it felt right and natural, two people who had chosen each other freely and completely. The months that followed were some of the happiest of Amelia's life. Vincent was everything he had promised to be and more. He worked the ranch alongside her, discussing decisions with her, and deferring to her judgment on matters related to the land and cattle. But he also brought his own experience and knowledge, improving their operations in ways that increased their productivity and profits. More importantly, he was a wonderful stepfather to Thomas. He taught the boy to ride and rope, told him stories about his adventures on various ranches, and listened patiently to Thomas's endless questions about everything from why the sky was blue to where cattle came from. Thomas, who barely remembered Robert, took to calling Vincent Papa within a few months, and the first time it happened, Amelia saw tears in her husband's eyes. The first real test of their partnership came in the fall, when a land speculator from Denver came to Fort Garland, trying to buy up small ranches to consolidate into a larger operation. He made Amelia an offer that was genuinely generous, enough money to set her and Thomas up comfortably for life without the back-breaking work of ranching. "What do you think?" she asked Vincent that evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains. "It is your ranch," Vincent said. "What do you think?" "I asked for your opinion," Amelia pressed. "We are partners. I want to know what you think." Vincent was quiet for a moment. "If we take the money, we could buy a smaller place, something easier to manage. Or we could move to town, start a business there. Thomas would have access to better schools." He paused. "But this place is more than just land and cattle. It is the dream you and Robert built. It is Thomas's inheritance. And honestly, I cannot imagine not waking up to this view every morning, not working this land with you." Amelia smiled. "Then we are in agreement. I am not selling." The speculator was not pleased when she turned him down, and he tried several tactics to change her mind, including hinting that a woman running a ranch was improper and unsustainable. But Amelia stood firm, and Vincent backed her up without trying to take over the conversation. "My wife has made her decision," he said calmly. "The ranch is not for sale, now or ever." Their second year of marriage brought new challenges and new joys. The ranch continued to prosper, and they were able to buy additional land, expanding their operation. Amelia found that she and Vincent worked together even better than she had with Robert, their skills and temperaments complementing each other perfectly. In the spring, Amelia discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with a complex mix of emotions. She was happy, excited about having another child and giving Thomas a sibling. But she was also worried about how pregnancy and motherhood would affect her ability to run the ranch. "I cannot do as much physical work in the later months," she told Vincent anxiously. "And after the baby comes, I will need to be in the house more." "Then we will adjust," Vincent said simply. "We will hire another hand or two to pick up the slack, and I can take on more of the day-to-day management. But Amelia, you are still the owner of this ranch. You still make the final decisions. Giving birth does not change that." His matter-of-fact acceptance of the situation eased Amelia's worries. True to his word, Vincent took on additional responsibilities as her pregnancy progressed, but he still consulted her on all major decisions. He installed a chair in the barn office so she could sit comfortably while they discussed ranch business, and he made sure she never felt sidelined or unnecessary. Thomas was excited about becoming a big brother, though he had a lot of questions about where babies came from and why Mama's belly was getting so big. Vincent handled these questions with a mixture of honesty and age-appropriate information that Amelia found endearing. Their son was born in December, during a cold snap that had icicles hanging from the eaves. The birth was hard but not dangerous, and when Amelia held her baby boy for the first time, she felt a rush of love so intense it took her breath away. "What should we name him?" Vincent asked, looking down at his son with wonder in his eyes. "I was thinking Robert Vincent," Amelia said softly. "Robert for my first husband, Vincent for you. He is a combination of both the lives I have lived." Vincent's eyes were wet. "That is perfect." Little Robert, called Bobby to distinguish him from his namesake, was a healthy, lusty baby who demanded attention and gave love freely. Thomas was fascinated by his little brother, always wanting to help with feeding and changing and entertaining him. Watching her two sons together filled Amelia with a contentment she had never expected to feel again after Robert's death. The ranch continued to thrive. With Vincent as her full partner and the additional hands they had hired, the operation ran smoothly, even with Amelia spending more time in the house during Bobby's first months. But as soon as she was recovered from the birth, she was back in the saddle, riding out to check fences and inspect cattle, sometimes with Bobby strapped to her back in a carrier Vincent had fashioned from leather and canvas. The people of Fort Garland had come to accept and even admire the unusual partnership between Amelia and Vincent. Other ranchers sought their advice, and several women in the area began to speak up more in their own family businesses, inspired by Amelia's example. When Bobby was 18 months old and Thomas was turning 7, Amelia and Vincent decided to host a summer celebration at the ranch. They invited everyone from town, as well as friends from neighboring ranches. It was partly a business decision, good for building relationships and community ties, but it was also a celebration of how far they had come. The day of the party was perfect, with clear blue skies and a gentle breeze that kept the heat from becoming oppressive. Long tables were set up in the yard, laden with food that Amelia and Mrs. Chen and several other women had prepared. There was music from a small band that had come down from Colorado Springs, and children ran everywhere, playing games and chasing each other. Standing on her porch, watching the celebration, Amelia felt Vincent's arm come around her waist. "Happy?" he asked. "Happier than I ever thought I could be," she admitted. "When Robert died, I thought my life was over. I thought I would spend the rest of my days just surviving, just getting through each day for Thomas's sake. And now I am not just surviving. I am living. I have a partner who respects me, 2 beautiful sons, a thriving ranch. I have friends and community and a future that looks bright." She turned to look at him. "You gave me that, Vincent, not by rescuing me or taking over, but by offering to walk beside me as an equal." "You gave me something too," Vincent said. "A home, a family, a purpose beyond just moving from place to place. I spent years looking for someone who wanted a partner, and I found the best partner I could have ever hoped for." They kissed, and Amelia heard some good-natured cheering from the guests who noticed. She laughed and pulled away, feeling her cheeks flush. The years that followed were not without their challenges. There were droughts and harsh winters, cattle diseases and fluctuating markets. But Amelia and Vincent faced each challenge together, making decisions jointly and supporting each other through the difficult times. When Thomas turned 13, he began taking on more responsibility at the ranch, working alongside Vincent and learning everything about cattle and horses and land management. He was a serious boy, much like his father Robert had been, but he had Amelia's stubborn determination and Vincent's steady patience. Bobby, on the other hand, was wild and adventurous, always getting into trouble and making everyone laugh. He adored his older brother and followed Thomas everywhere, despite Thomas's frequent complaints about the pest of a little brother. In their 7th year of marriage, Amelia and Vincent welcomed a daughter. They named her Sarah, after Vincent's mother. She was a tiny, delicate baby with dark hair and eyes like her father, and from the moment she was born, she had both her older brothers wrapped around her little finger. "I am outnumbered now," Vincent joked, watching his sons fuss over their baby sister. 3 against 2. "You were always outnumbered," Amelia teased. "I have been winning our arguments from the beginning." "Only because you are always right," Vincent said, and the love in his eyes made Amelia's heart swell. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The ranch prospered, and they were able to build a larger house, with proper bedrooms for each of the children, and a study where Amelia could manage the business side of the ranch. They bought more land, expanding their operation until the Everhart Crawford Ranch was one of the most successful in the region. The hyphenated name had been Vincent's idea. "This is not just your ranch anymore," he had said. "It is our ranch, built on the foundation you and Robert created but expanded by our partnership." The name should reflect that. Other ranchers started coming to them for advice, recognizing that their partnership model was not just unusual but effective. Several younger couples in the area began structuring their own marriages as true partnerships, with wives having legal ownership and equal say in business decisions. Amelia became something of a legend in the territory, the widow who had refused to remarry until she found a true partner. Young women from as far away as Denver wrote to her, asking for advice on how to maintain their independence while still finding love and companionship. She always wrote back, sharing what she had learned, that the right person would not try to diminish you but would help you grow, that a true partnership meant respecting each other's strengths and supporting each other's weaknesses, that love did not require giving up who you were. As the children grew, Amelia made sure that Sarah learned everything about running the ranch, just as the boys did. She would not raise her daughter to believe that ranching was only for men. Sarah proved to be a natural, with an eye for good cattle, and a way with horses that surpassed even Thomas's considerable skill. When Thomas was 21, he fell in love with a young woman from Fort Garland named Mary Jenkins. She was a schoolteacher, smart and independent, and she and Thomas decided they wanted to build a house on the ranch and work the land together as partners. Amelia gave them a section of the property and helped them plan their house, pleased that her son had found someone who shared his values. Bobby, at 17, announced that he wanted to go to college to study veterinary medicine. It was expensive and would take him away from the ranch, but Amelia and Vincent supported his decision. The ranch could afford it now, and Bobby's skills would be valuable when he returned. "You will come back, though?" Amelia asked anxiously. "This is still your home." "Of course I will come back, Mama," Bobby assured her. "I am going to be the best animal doctor in Colorado, and then I am coming home to take care of our herd and every other herd in the region." Sarah, at 12, was already declaring that she wanted to run the ranch someday, and Amelia had no doubt her daughter would do exactly that. Life was not perfect. They lost cattle to disease and predators. They had conflicts with neighbors over water rights and grazing land. Vincent's father-figure role with Thomas was complicated at times, as Thomas struggled with loyalty to his birth father's memory and love for the man who had raised him. But they worked through every challenge together, talking and compromising and supporting each other. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Vincent took Amelia on a trip to Denver, their first time away from the ranch together since their wedding. They stayed in a nice hotel, went to the theater, and ate in fancy restaurants. It was exciting and fun, but they were both glad to return home to the ranch and the children. "I think I am a country woman at heart," Amelia said as they rode up the familiar road to their house. "The city is fine for visiting, but this is where I belong." "This is where we both belong," Vincent agreed. As the years continued to pass, Amelia watched her children grow into capable, independent adults. Thomas and Mary had 3 children of their own, expanding the family and ensuring the ranch would continue into another generation. Bobby finished veterinary school and returned home, setting up a practice on the ranch that served the entire region. Sarah showed every sign of becoming an even better rancher than Amelia, with a sharp business mind and innovative ideas about cattle breeding and land management. Amelia and Vincent grew older together, their hair turning gray, their bodies showing the wear of decades of hard work. But their partnership remained strong, their love deepening with each passing year. When Amelia was 52 and Vincent was 56, they took another trip, this time to visit Bobby at his veterinary college before he graduated. On the way back, they stopped at the place where they had first met, the barn where Vincent had ridden up asking for work. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I had turned you away that night?" Amelia asked. "Sometimes," Vincent admitted, "but I do not think you would have. You needed help and I needed a job. It was practical." "It was fate," Amelia corrected. "You were exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it. Not someone to rescue me, but someone to walk beside me." "I could say the same about you," Vincent said. "I spent years looking for a partner and then I found the best one imaginable." They stood together, looking at the ranch they had built, the family they had raised, the life they had created. It had not been easy, but it had been worth every moment of struggle and sacrifice. As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Amelia leaned against Vincent's shoulder, feeling his arm come around her in a gesture as familiar and comfortable as breathing. "I love you," she said softly. "I love you too," Vincent replied. "Always and forever, my partner." And in that moment, Amelia knew that everything had worked out exactly as it was meant to. She had lost her first love, but she had found a second chance. She had refused to settle for less than she deserved, and she had been rewarded with a partnership that was everything she had hoped for and more. The ranch would continue, passed down through generations of children who understood that love and respect were the foundations of any strong relationship. The Everhart-Crawford name would endure, a testament to 2 people who had built something lasting together. As they walked back to the house together, hand in hand, Amelia felt at peace. She had lived a full life, rich with love and purpose and achievement. She had raised good children and built a successful business. She had proven that a woman could do anything a man could do, and she had found a man who celebrated that truth rather than being threatened by it. Most importantly, she had learned that the right kind of love did not diminish you. It expanded you, made you better, helped you become the fullest version of yourself. Vincent had never asked her to be anything other than who she was, and in return, she had given him all of herself freely and joyfully. Years continued to pass in a gentle rhythm of seasons and cycles. Thomas took over more of the day-to-day operations of the ranch as Amelia and Vincent gradually stepped back, though they remained involved in major decisions and planning. The grandchildren grew, and then there were great-grandchildren, tiny faces full of possibility and promise. Amelia and Vincent celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary surrounded by family. Dozens of people descended from their union or connected to it through marriage and love. Looking around at all those faces, Amelia marveled at how one decision, one choice to give a dusty cowboy a chance when he asked for work, had led to all of this. "What are you thinking about?" Vincent asked, his hand finding hers as they sat together on the porch after everyone else had gone to bed. "I am thinking about that night you rode up asking for work," Amelia said. "I almost sent you away. I was so determined to do everything myself, to prove I did not need anyone." "But you took a chance on me," Vincent said. "Best decision I ever made," Amelia replied. "Well, second best. The best was accepting Robert's proposal all those years ago, but you are a very close second." Vincent laughed, the sound warm and rich. "I will take second place to Robert Everhart any day. He was a good man, and he made you who you are. I am grateful to him for that." It was one of the things Amelia loved most about Vincent, his complete lack of jealousy about her first marriage. He had never tried to compete with Robert's memory or make her feel guilty for still loving the man who had been her first husband. Instead, he had honored that love and built their own relationship alongside it. When Amelia was 63, she woke one morning to find Vincent sitting on the edge of their bed, looking at her with an expression of such tender love that it took her breath away. "What is it?" she asked. "I was just thinking about how lucky I am," Vincent said. "I get to wake up next to you every morning. I get to work beside you every day. I get to fall asleep with you in my arms every night. After all these years, I am still amazed by my good fortune." Amelia sat up and took his face in her hands. "I am the lucky one. You gave me a second chance at happiness when I thought my life was over. You showed me that love does not have to mean giving up who you are. You have been my partner in the truest sense of the word, and I could not have asked for a better companion on this journey." They kissed, and even after more than 3 decades of marriage, Amelia felt the same flutter in her stomach that she had felt when they first acknowledged their feelings for each other. As they grew older, Amelia and Vincent spent more time simply being together, walking the land they loved, sitting on the porch watching the sunset, playing with grandchildren and great-grandchildren. They shared memories and made new ones, their bond growing deeper with each passing year. Sarah eventually took over full management of the ranch, with input and advice from her parents and oldest brother. She proved to be an exceptional rancher, innovative and bold, taking the operation to new heights of success. She married a man who respected her strength and independence, another partnership built on equality and mutual respect. "She is just like you," Vincent told Amelia one day as they watched Sarah negotiating a business deal with a buyer from Kansas City. "Strong, smart, refuses to back down." "She is better than me," Amelia said with pride. "She has all my stubbornness but none of my doubts. She grew up knowing she could do anything, never had to fight for the right to be taken seriously." "That is your legacy," Vincent said. "You paved the way for her, and for all the other young women around here who see running a business or a ranch as a real possibility." It was true. The culture in the Fort Garland area had shifted over the decades, partly because of Amelia's example. Women owned businesses, managed ranches, made decisions about their own lives with a freedom that had been rare when Amelia was young. When Amelia turned 70, the family threw her a massive birthday celebration. People came from all over Colorado. Ranchers and business people and friends accumulated over a lifetime. There were speeches and toasts, stories and laughter, and through it all, Vincent sat beside her, his hand in hers, his presence as steady and comforting as it had been for nearly 40 years. "Mama," Sarah said during her toast, "you taught me that being a woman does not mean settling for less than you deserve. You showed me that the right partner will celebrate your strength, not be threatened by it. You proved that love and independence are not opposites, but can exist together in perfect harmony. Everything I am, everything I have accomplished, I owe to your example." Amelia cried happy tears as her daughter spoke, and she felt Vincent squeeze her hand in understanding and support. The final years of Amelia's life were peaceful and content. She spent her days surrounded by the people and the land she loved, secure in the knowledge that the ranch and the family would continue long after she was gone. She and Vincent took long walks together, talked for hours about everything and nothing, and loved each other with the deep, abiding affection of a lifetime of partnership. When Amelia passed away at the age of 78, it was peacefully in her sleep, with Vincent holding her hand. She had lived a full, rich life, achieving everything she had set out to do and more. She had proven that a woman could run a ranch, raise a family, and maintain her independence. She had found love twice, and both times it had been real and true and transformative. Vincent mourned her deeply, but without bitterness. They had been blessed with 43 years of marriage, and every one of those years had been a gift. He lived another 5 years, staying involved with the ranch and doting on his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. When he died at 83, his family knew he had gone to be with Amelia, the partner who had made his life complete. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, next to Robert Everhart. It seemed fitting that the three of them should rest together, the two men who had loved Amelia and helped her build something lasting, and the woman who had shown them both what it meant to be a true partner. The Everhart Crawford Ranch continued to thrive, passed down through generations who never forgot the lessons Amelia and Vincent had taught. That love should be a partnership of equals, that the right person will celebrate your strength, not try to diminish it. That saying, "I need a partner, not a servant," is not just about gender roles but about fundamental respect and equality in any relationship. The story of Amelia Everhart and Vincent Crawford became something of a legend in Colorado. Young couples starting out would reference them, aspiring to build marriages as strong and equal as theirs had been. Women facing difficult decisions would ask themselves what Amelia would have done. Men learning to be good husbands and fathers would look to Vincent's example of how to support and respect a strong woman. Years after both Amelia and Vincent had passed, a writer from back east came to Fort Garland to research a book about the settling of Colorado. She interviewed the descendants of Amelia and Vincent, walked the land they had worked, and pieced together their story from letters and diaries and family memories. The book she wrote became a bestseller, introducing Amelia and Vincent to people across the country. But for the family, for the people who had known them and loved them, the real legacy was not in any book or legend. It was in the land they had worked, the family they had raised, and the example they had set. The last surviving child of Amelia and Vincent was Sarah, who lived to be 96. In her final interview before her death, she was asked what she remembered most about her parents. "What I remember most," Sarah said, her voice still strong despite her age, "is the way they looked at each other. Even when they were old, even after decades of marriage, they still looked at each other with respect and love and genuine liking. My father never treated my mother as anything less than his equal, and my mother never diminished herself to make him feel bigger. They built something together that lasted beyond their lifetimes, and they did it as partners in the truest sense of the word." "You think their kind of marriage is still possible today?" the interviewer asked. Sarah smiled. "Their kind of marriage is always possible, in any era, for people who are brave enough to demand equality and wise enough to recognize it when they find it. My mother refused to settle for less than she deserved, and my father was man enough to appreciate the gift of a strong, independent woman. That is a lesson that never goes out of style." And so the story of Amelia and Vincent lived on, not just in books and legends, but in the lives of the people they had touched and the family they had created. The ranch they built together still stood, a testament to what two people could accomplish when they worked as true partners. The love they shared still inspired, showing generations that the best kind of love is the kind that makes both people stronger, better, more fully themselves. In the end, that was the real story. Not just that a widow had refused to remarry until she found the right man, but that she had known her own worth well enough to wait for someone who recognized it. Not just that a cowboy had said he needed a partner, not a servant, but that he had spent the rest of his life proving he meant it. Not just that they had fallen in love, but that they had built a love that lasted, that grew, that became the foundation for something much bigger than themselves. Their story was about respect and equality, about partnership and mutual support, about two people who chose each other freely and loved each other completely. It was about refusing to settle for less than you deserve and being brave enough to believe that true partnership is possible. And in a world that often told women to be smaller, quieter, more accommodating, Amelia Everhart had stood tall and demanded to be treated as an equal. In a world that often told men to dominate and control, Vincent Crawford had offered partnership and respect instead. Together, they had shown that there was a better way, a way that honored both people and created something beautiful and lasting. The land they had worked continued to produce, generation after generation. The children they had raised went on to have children of their own, spreading across Colorado and beyond, carrying with them the lessons they had learned about love and partnership and respect. The ranch they had built remained a landmark, a piece of Colorado history, a reminder of what was possible when two people worked together as equals. But perhaps the greatest legacy of Amelia and Vincent was not in the land or the family, or even the example they set. It was in the hearts of every person who heard their story and thought, yes, that is what I want. That is what love should be. It was in every woman who refused to settle for a man who wanted to control her instead of partner with her. It was in every man who learned to celebrate strong women instead of being threatened by them. Amelia had started her journey as a grieving widow, determined to prove she could survive on her own. She had ended it as a beloved matriarch, having proven that survival was not enough, that life was meant to be lived fully and joyfully, and in partnership with someone who respected you completely. Vincent had started his journey as a wandering cowboy, looking for work and a place to belong. He had ended it as a patriarch of a large family, having found not just a job but a home, not just a wife but a true partner. Together, they had built something that lasted. Not because it was easy, but because they had committed to treating each other as equals, to communicating honestly, to supporting each other's dreams and goals. They had shown that the best marriages are partnerships, that love does not require sacrifice of self but expansion of self, that two strong people can build something stronger together than either could alone, and that, in the end, was a legacy worth leaving. A legacy that continued to inspire and guide long after they were gone, a legacy that would endure as long as people believed in the possibility of true partnership and equal love. The story of Amelia and Vincent was not just history. It was a blueprint for how love could and should be, a reminder that demanding respect and equality was not selfish but necessary, and that the right person would not just accept, but celebrate those demands. The ranch stood as a monument to their love. The family they created carried on their values, and their story remained a beacon of hope for anyone seeking a love built on mutual respect and genuine partnership. They had lived well, loved deeply, and left the world better than they found it. What more could anyone ask for in a life?